Hey, welcome to Truth Tuesday with Pastor Josh. Truth is the true and actual state of a matter. It is conformity with fact or reality. It is verified. It's the real deal. Let's look at what that means today on Truth Tuesday. Hey, welcome everyone to our podcast today. We've been continuing our really a week and a half long series through just some questions, some reflective questions, helping us to identify some ways that maybe God is wanting to work in our lives. And so we're going to continue that today. And so I want to ask you the question, what is holding you back? It's one of the most powerful questions that I've ever been asked. And it's asked to me often, what's holding you back? Because I think, especially in the season that we're all in, if we answer that honestly, many of us will say, would say fear or worry, anxiety, fear of the unknown, the unexpected. There's lots of things that can arise that keep us from going the direction God's called us to, or becoming the people He's calling us to become. There's lots of things that can get in the way. And so, what is it? What is it in your life today that is standing in the way? That's the roadblock that, as we've been going over these other questions, you say, well, that's all great. I think I have some answers to those questions, but I just can't go forward because of this, whatever that thing is. We got to address that, right? We have to address the elephant in the room, the thing in the way. We have to do that for us to be able to move forward. And so, it reminds me of a story in the scripture in Judges chapter 6 where it talks about Gideon and how this mighty man of valor, who he did not see himself that way. His big obstacle was fear. He did not see himself like the Lord saw him. And I love the imagery because it talks about the angel of the Lord has showed up. And so I believe it's a picture of Christ in the Old Testament, that I believe that Jesus showed up to Gideon and was having a conversation with him. And so I love that imagery, like Jesus sitting there and talking to Gideon. And Gideon, you can almost picture him as somebody who might be pretty insecure, somebody who maybe might be overcome with some fear and anxiety, trying to live in the shadows, not trying to draw much attention to himself because of all the Midianites in that time that were very oppressive and had taken over the land of Israel. And so Gideon is called by the Lord to rise up, to fight, and to deliver the people of Israel. And many times in that passage, it talks about him as the Lord calls him the mighty man of valor, which I love that because, of course, we get the picture from Gideon that he doesn't believe that. That doesn't appear to be right. It appears to be very wrong because he seems to have quite a bit of fear he's working through and even some trust issues as he's trying to make sure again and again that this is really the Lord speaking to him. Isn't that what we do? We try to rationalize ourselves out of obeying the Lord because of the stumbling blocks in our way. We give the stumbling blocks so much room, so much power in our life. We make them much bigger than they really are. Speaking of that elephant in the room, it's pretty common knowledge that elephants, for whatever reason, don't necessarily like mice. They don't like rodents. It seems to cause a lot of fear in them, and which is funny because we all know that the elephant is much bigger than the mouse. So mice, I don't know why. Yeah, it's that plural thing. It's a little tough, but it's funny that the mouse, I almost did it again, can almost paralyze an elephant, because obviously the elephant's much bigger than the mouse. It's not even a thing. It's not even a fair battle. But we treat it like that, don't we? All of our stumbling blocks, they seem much larger than they really are. Can you picture yourself huddled in a room, and saying, I just can't get out of here. I can't get out of here. I need to move that rock in the room. But that rock in the room is the size of a pebble. It's the size of a river stone. And you're thinking, man, I just can't get out of here because that stone is so big in the way. It's all about perspective. Have you ever seen people catch fish and they do the holy fish hold where it's like out here and they hold it and as close to the camera as they can, and then and then you have them, and at least the fish looks huge, right? It's all about perception. Because if you brought it back here, you realize it's the size of a goldfish, you know? And so that's really the way it is with our stumbling blocks, the things in the way. And so, and it's interesting because the story of Gideon doesn't stop there. Because Gideon goes on, and if you know the story, he has many men, and then the Lord, over some time, dwindles his men all the way down to the 300 against a massive army. The Lord wanted Gideon to use only 300. I wonder if it's because the Lord knew that Gideon was most likely still struggling with his fear, his insecurity, and he wanted to feel secure in his number and not in the Lord. He was still battling his stumbling blocks. He was still trying to figure out a way to allow that stumbling block to be a part of the situation. We do that without even realizing it. And but the thing about it is that the Lord knew that Gideon had to allow him to remove it from his life, which the Lord did in Gideon's life. He used the 300 in Gideon to deliver the Israelites. So the plan worked. And it's painful for us to trust the Lord in that way. Gideon even had to be he had to hear this one dream in the camp, knowing that dream was of the Lord. I mean, he struggled time and again he had to keep fighting that stumbling block, that insecurity, that fear of whether he could be used of the Lord. And I think at some level we all have some sort of fear or stumbling block of some kind in the way of what God is calling us to do. And the Lord wants to use us like he used Gideon. Now, let's be honest. Gideon might not have really been a mighty man of valor when the Lord called him, but the Lord knew who he was calling him to be. And remember, the first question we asked is, who are you becoming? The Lord knew who Gideon was becoming, and he was faithful to see it through. But for that to happen, the Lord has to remove the stumbling blocks from our lives. But we have to be willing to partner with him. We have to be willing, like Gideon, to allow the Lord to dwindle us down to the 300, to remove those stumbling blocks from us, those places of trust. Because really a stumbling block is something that we trust that to be more true than we trust our God to be true. And we put our faith into that by believing that we can't move past it. And so the Lord wants us to put our faith in him. And if we do that, in reference to our stumbling blocks, he will remove those. They will be like nothing. We'll see them as they are, as little stones in our path that we can easily step over with the Lord. And so I encourage you, ask the question, what is holding you back? What's standing in the way? And answer that question and see what God will do in your life today as we look forward to becoming who he's becoming, or who he wants us to become, and do what he is calling us to do. Lord bless you today. Thanks for joining me.